And we're on. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to conference week here at Ballard Sports Media, Christian Ballard, Ballard Sports Media. And right out the gate, we got John Diadamo. Am I saying that correctly? Or
Yeah, man, that's the Italian way, so that's good. And you can also go Diadamo. You said that in the other video. You said Diadamo,
I
so both
did,
both are right.
yeah.
You got it
Well,
right. You got both.
absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate you doing this, man. It's been a great week, and we've had some amazing guests. This is our third edition of Conference Week 2023, where we go 5 days in a row, and we try to cover each conference with a variety of guests. Tomorrow, I believe tomorrow we're doing the Pac-12. We'll try to get Tony Altimore on. I want to thank, too, in advance, before I forget, I want to thank Joey Foster, who has helped set up the guests this week for us, and it's been pretty good so far. But you guys know what to do. Just make sure to hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and also this guy covers Michigan at the Voice of College Football. Go subscribe to that channel. Go subscribe to every Voice of College Football channel if you can, which I know that you can. It's free to hit the subscribe button. So.
Yeah, hit the subscribe and hit the bell on anything. First of all, on this channel on Ballard Sports Media, but also do it on Michigan Football, Voice of College Football, and Maine Voice of College Football. So I run. So I'm the co-host of the Michigan show, which I just did a couple hours ago. So every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, we try to bring you all the hot topics of Michigan football. And I'm also the host of the 8 p.m. block Eastern of the Big Ten live show every Monday on the Maine Voice of College Football channel. So Mark handles 6 to 8 usually, and then I go 8 till whenever people want to keep talking. So I do what I can, but it's a great time.
Yeah, and like I mentioned too, guys, if you guys have questions about the Big Ten, any teams out there, questions in general, it doesn't even have to be football related. Put them in the comments. We'll be happy to read them tonight. And what do you say we get it started? So,
yeah,
want to discuss Penn State tonight because I think Penn State could be an interesting team this year. James Franklin looks to end the Penn State Big Ten title drought. They haven't won a national title since the 80s. They haven't won a Big Ten title since 2016. I mean, it's been about 7 years. I think we're going on 7 years since then. But they've been in that territory where they have been able to make it. They just can't get past Ohio State. There's teams like Michigan out there. Sometimes even a team in the Big Ten West. They always seem to lose one game. It always seems like it's Ohio State, and then they lose to another Big Ten team, and it kicks them out completely. So I guess my first question is, how does a team like Penn State win the Big Ten in 2023? And also, in addition to that, are they going to need some help from other Big Ten East teams?
Yeah. Yes. So to start off, James Franklin is only still at Penn State because he had a lucky game against Ohio State in 2016. Let's start right there. So James Franklin, I would say he's a very good recruiter. He brings in talent, even some 5 stars. I think he's elevated that program from what Bill O'Brien had it at, and they were in a dumpster fire for a minute there, if you remember. And James Franklin came in. He had some successful years at Vanderbilt, as we know, going 9 wins at Vandy. That's tough. Okay, so you got to give him some props for that. But then he comes to Penn State, and he does okay. He has the 2016 year where he, even though Michigan did beat him pretty good early on in that season, he did go and have the kind of fluke. I call it a fluke, crazy play to win the game in 2016. Go on to win the Big Ten championship. And after that, what has happened is that they've had kind of, they had the Saquon Barkley years and Joe Moorhead, right? And Joe Moorhead is a fantastic offensive coordinator. Everybody knows it. But what's happened since? They've kind of fallen off a bit, right? Quarterback play hasn't really been there. Sean Clifford, bless his heart. Let's be real. He did great with staying a long time. He did great in that department. He had a couple of good plays, but he's more of a game manager, right? So now that this is really the year. They had the Rose Bowl win, but everybody knows that Utah was depleted. They were on a backup quarterback. They were banged up really good. So Penn State winning that game, yeah, good for James Franklin. He got over the hump and won the Rose Bowl. Good for him. Beat up on a C-string Utah team at that point, right? But now he's going to have to face off because he's in the Big Ten East. And if you're in the Big Ten East, it's one of the toughest divisions in football. So he's got to go after. He's got to beat Ohio State and Michigan, at least one of those two, or it's over, right? And he's got to win everything else too. So can he do that? I'm not sold, right? Drew Aller, we don't really know what he's going to do yet. We haven't seen him against live fire for a whole game with the ones. We haven't seen it. He's mostly played backup duty, garbage time. And so he's a 5-star quarterback. He's everybody is, you all you have to do is Google Penn State Drew Aller and you'd think he's the savior of Penn State football. Like, folks, he's still young in his career. He is a 5-star. But he's not the only player on the team. He's got the running back core is pretty good. Nick Singleton especially. So last season, Nick Singleton had 1,061 yards, 33rd in the country on rushing yardage. He did get 12 touchdowns. It's not too bad. Kaytron Allen is another really good running back. But their O-line is really, and I talked to a Penn State fan, Argraw, who hangs out on the Big Ten show. He's on the panel a lot. And he talks about that this season is really going to come down to the offensive line, right? So one player that you're going to want to look at, okay, his name is Olu Fashanu, and he's the left tackle. So if they're going to win, it's going to be partly on the back of him and the rest of the O-line figuring it out, okay? And Phil Trotwine, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right or not, but he's the O-line coach. They're going to need to figure it out because what happened is obviously they really weren't able in the Michigan game last year to get their runners going much. Meanwhile, Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum were able to put together 417 rushing yards against them. So their O-line has to be tough, and their D-line has to be extremely tough as well. Manny Diaz is good DC, but it remains to be seen what happens with that. I am not sold. I think they're going to go 9-3. I think they're going to lose to Ohio State, Michigan, and probably Maryland, or actually Iowa. I'm actually predicting Iowa beats Penn State at Beaver Stadium. And I've said this a bunch of times on the Big Ten show. So could they end the drought? Sure. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't think so. That's my take.
Yeah, we're talking with our good friend John Adamo. I'm trying with that name, man. But what would you say about Penn State to anybody that might be, because I do believe there's hype around Drew Aller and, this team, Nick Singleton. And I know you kind of mentioned you kind of have questions about the O-line, but to anybody out there buying the hype, do you get it? Like, is it understandable in ways? What would you say to those that are buying Penn State this year?
Well, I understand why, because the media narrative is Penn State's going to be this amazing team. They're going to maybe make the playoffs or whatever. That's what you're hearing in the media. But if you actually study it, It's still the same old head coach, and he's been there. He's been there quite a while, and he won one Big Ten championship on a fluke against Ohio State, and otherwise he's had trouble beating Ohio State. He is 3-3 recently against Michigan, but he has not had a lot of luck against Ohio State since 2016. And in order to get to the Big Ten championship, you gotta beat one of the two minimum, and really you gotta beat both. Because Ohio State and Michigan are both probably going to be, I think Michigan's going to go 12-0 again, and I think Ohio State's going to go 11-1 again. Maybe 10-2, we'll see, but probably 11-1. And then Penn State's going to be yet again left out. And I not only think they're going to lose to Ohio State and Michigan, because I just think that they're both more Michigan's more physical. Michigan has the advantage on running back, even though Penn State has a great running back core. I'm sorry, you cannot beat Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, and now Ben Hall and Khalil Mullings to kind of get a short yardage situation. So all four of them together, not to mention maybe even CJ Stokes might, Isaiah Hull from Wolverines Wire just interviewed CJ Stokes, and he looks like he's very motivated to improve, and he's fourth or fifth in the depth chart, right? Yeah. So they're stacked at running back. They're looking to pass more. So Michigan is moving to a 50-50 pass run offense, according to Jim Harbaugh. So look out, because JJ has had all spring now to practice. Like, look at what they did last year, and JJ didn't have spring, and he was competing in the fall against Cade. Remember, he was competing until the game number 2. They were auditioning, and Cade was supposed to run Colorado State game, and JJ is supposed to run the Hawaii game. And so JJ did not have all the reps with the ones, and now he has. The defense is looking to get even more stacked. I don't know if you heard, but just today, Michigan picked up a transfer from UMass, Josh Wallace, as a cornerback. So now you got Will Johnson. Will Johnson is cornerback 1. Josh Wallace potentially is cornerback 2. Walker maybe is cornerback 3. That's pretty deadly. And that was the only question mark Michigan really had. Everywhere else, Michigan's stacked. And I think they're setting themselves up with the schedule we have. We really only have 2 tough games, Penn State and Ohio State. And I genuinely think that from what I've seen, that Michigan's going to beat Penn State again, and Michigan's going to beat Ohio State again. Ohio State is also difficult for Penn State, although I think that Penn State has a better chance of beating Ohio State. They usually play them tough, right? Historically, even though Michigan has lost some games, Penn State does play Ohio State really tough. So they might get them. And it's going to probably be a rushing attack if they do. So Singleton's going to have a game. Katron Allen's going to have a game. And Manny Diaz is going to have to shut down the wide receivers that are going to be going NFL first round. So that's, Penn State's path is really, I think, beat Ohio State, keep it close against Michigan, hope Michigan trips up somewhere else.
Yeah.
Big Ten, basically, Christian, Big Ten East is really tough. It's a really tough division. And that's why, so I'm sorry, Penn State fans. And I've said this to Penn State fans' face. So I'm not saying anything I wouldn't say to my buddy Argerall or other Penn State fans that are out there. I just don't see it this year. I'm thinking 8 or 9 wins for Penn State.
I respect that. I think it makes a lot of sense. And you talk quite a bit about Michigan, too, who I understand is your team. So I didn't plan this question, but I am curious. Let's say if Michigan goes into this season, which I think they will, as the Big Ten East favorites, or who probably should be. Let's say they win the Big Ten for a third straight year. They get to the college football playoff for a third straight year. How do they get over the hump to get to a national title? Forget trying to win that. They need to get to that. How does Michigan take that next step and finally win a playoff game?
Yeah. So those of you who watched the TCU game know that there were two key plays that if Blake Corum was healthy would have gone in for touchdowns, right? The Philly special wouldn't have been called. They would have punched in with Blake Corum. And the half-yard line, when there was the play where they thought it was a touchdown, they called it back, and then it was at the half-yard line, and they weren't able to get it in. Blake Corum would have punched that one in too. That's 2 additional touchdowns, and then Michigan wins the game, right? So Michigan was a Blake Corum away from winning that game. TCU, to their credit, they were firing on all cylinders. Garrett Riley put together an amazing offensive game plan. The quarterback was fantastic, Max Duggan, and they capitalized on every single mistake Michigan made. So while I think on paper Michigan was the far better team, on the field, TCU showed up and Michigan didn't. So what does Michigan need to do? Number one, let's not call boneheaded plays in short yardage situations like a Philly special when that's against our identity, right? And if you're going to call a trick play, you got to set it up. So Joel Klatt talks about this a lot. If you're going to call like a double pass or whatever, you got to set it up first with a play beforehand, right? So I think that's kind of a key piece. Mark Rogers just texted me. I was like, oh, so you know what I mean? So I think that part one is don't call boneheaded plays. Part two is obviously JJ needs to limit mistakes. I think Kirk Campbell's the quarterback coach is going to work on that with him this year. And the defense needs to hold tough. Who would Michigan likely play in the playoff in the semis? I mean, it could be USC. And if that's the case, then what's going to need to happen is the defense is going to have to get at Caleb, and make sure that obviously that you take advantage of USC's not so amazing defense. To their credit, they've gotten a lot of pieces in the transfer portal. Tim Prangley always talks about this. A lot of pieces in the transfer portal. But at the end of the day, I still don't think their defense is going to be amazing. And so like that could be an option. Alabama could be an option. I could see them facing Alabama. I could see them facing, I don't think they're going to face Georgia. And I think Georgia will probably be the title game. But at the end of the day, really getting over the hump means don't call boneheaded plays, limit mistakes, stay healthy, and don't treat the postseason like a damn vacation. So I follow some of the players on Instagram, and I watched their Instagram lives, and they were partying like in Miami in 2021. They were partying on the yachts and stuff, doing boat tours, and they treated it like an educational trip. I am hoping that this year they don't do that. And I think that they're all laser focused. Blake Corum wouldn't have come back, by the way, if he didn't genuinely think that there was a chance to win a title this year. So really this year, with Michigan returning 81% production, with now one offensive coordinator instead of two, and with JJ having a ton more time, I mean, look at all the other teams. Alabama's got a quarterback problem. Georgia probably is going to be Carson Beck, but he isn't very battle tested, right? Ohio State has a quarterback issue. They don't know who it's going to be. It could be McCord. It could be Devin Brown. So just list off all the big teams, and they pretty much all have a quarterback problem or an untested quarterback. In Penn State's case, an untested yeah, he's talented, but he's pretty untested. He didn't play a lot, right? So Michigan is in the best position they've been in years to make and win the national title. Will it happen? Georgia's still the favorite, and they will be, and they should be. And Carson Beck's going to be a problem, I think. I think he looked very good in the spring game. I don't know if you watched it. He looked very good in the spring game. So he's going to be a problem. Georgia's going to be a problem. But I think Michigan can beat any other team. I think Michigan can beat Alabama. I think Michigan can beat USC. I think Michigan can beat a lot of the other teams that are being talked about. So it's really, I do genuinely believe it'll come down to Georgia and Michigan.
Absolutely. And, we stick to Big Ten talk here with John D'Adamo, and it's going good so far. Make sure you guys leave a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you're new, And go check out Michigan at the Voice of College Football. Subscribe to all their channels over there. This season is a big year for college football. When you look at the Big 12 bringing in 4 new teams, next season is going to be huge because of what the SEC is bringing in and everything. And of course, the Big 10. We'll get to USC and UCLA in a little bit, but still have divisions this year. What I've noticed is in the Big 10 championship, ever since we've had a East and West division, you go back to 2013, 2014, still divisions in the Big 10. How would you say, because it hasn't happened yet, the Big 10 West has not won the Big 10 title. I think it's
zero time.
I think it starts with teams like Wisconsin this year, with Luke Fickell, what he's going to do. But when you look at teams like Wisconsin, Iowa, Purdue, when you look at the West, how do they challenge a team like Michigan or Penn State or whoever comes out of the East? How do they challenge those teams and ultimately get over the hump?
Yeah. I mean, the short answer is they don't. I'm sorry, but the Big Ten East is just such a more difficult division, and it's a meat grinder. So you're going to have top 10 Michigan facing off against top 10 Ohio State and top 10 Penn State. And who knows, maybe Maryland sneaks in there too. Because Maryland, don't sleep on Maryland completely. They got Talia Tagovailoa coming back. They've got a lot of people coming back. And don't sleep on them completely. But definitely the first three that I mentioned are all going to be in the top 10. So then on the West side, Iowa, I believe, has the best chance and is in the best position to be the Big Ten West champion. And Iowa has brought in Cade McNamara, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously Michigan's quarterback won the Big Ten in 2021. He is more of a game manager quarterback. He's not a gunslinger. He does short yardage throws, mid-range throws, and he hands the ball off and he manages the game. But guess what? That's what Iowa needed. They just needed competent quarterback play. They had one of the worst quarterbacks and one of the worst offensive coordinators in all of football ever. So now they still have one of the worst coordinators in all of football, but I don't know if even he can mess up. Cade McNamara under center, Eric All on one side as a tight end, Luke Lachey on the other side as a tight end, Caleb Johnson as the running back. They just got the guy from Ohio State's wide receiver. And you know that Phil Parker's defense is going to be a top 10 ranked defense in the country. So Iowa is going, I think, unless Wisconsin does something crazy. I just didn't see enough in the spring game to tell me either way. I don't know. Tanner Mordecai, the quarterback, they're still installing the air raid. And when you're installing a brand new offensive philosophy and system, it takes 2 years. It's going to be a minute. They have a great running back, one of the best in the country, but it's still going to be a minute. I mean, Mordecai was equal opportunity quarterback. He was thrown to the offense and he was thrown to the defense. He was throwing to everybody and he threw 4 picks in the spring game. So I don't know about Wisconsin. I do know enough about Iowa to say that I think Iowa's going to be, if I had to put money on it right now, Iowa will be the Big Ten West Division champ unless something crazy happens. Purdue's on the decline. They're going to need a year after losing pretty much everybody. Their coach, their quarterback, their everybody pretty much. So they're going to need a year. Illinois lost a bunch of people. So I think the only one, Northwestern's complete dumpster fire right now for some reason. Yeah. So I think the only one, Nebraska, they look kind of good, but they're slated to go 6-6. And I think that's about right. So Vegas has them about 6 over under. I think that's about right. So yeah, Iowa to me, I don't even think it's close. So that sets up potentially a Cade McNamara versus JJ McCarthy battle in the Big Ten championship.
That would
how about that?
That would be amazing. And like you said too, I mean, they've just needed some quarterback play. They've needed to manage the offensive coordinator job at Iowa, and it seems like they've done that this year too. Man, I love Iowa. I think I like Kirk Ferentz. I love what he's done. He is a defensive beast. He's a defensive guru. He's
Yeah.
just needed to figure out the offense. Like, if it wasn't for the offense, maybe they'd already have a Big Ten title. Maybe they'd win the West more frequently. Maybe they'd, get over and take those next steps and being a more competitive team.
Oh my God! If they had even Penn State level offense, okay, Iowa goes to the playoff with the Penn State level offense, and I think Penn State's offense is kind of mid. Iowa with the Penn State offense goes to the playoff. Their defense is so good, and Casey just mentioned it in the chat here. If you want to highlight that one, Casey. Sorry, John, but Cade wins because Iowa has a good defense versus Michigan. Casey? Are you saying that Cade is going to beat? So you're saying that Iowa's going to beat Michigan? Casey is an Iowa fan. We love Casey. Casey is on the Iowa Hawkeyes show a lot and supports us all over Voice of College Football. So Casey came over to support me, and I really appreciate that. I can't get behind this take as much. Iowa's defense, I'm going to give you this, Casey. Iowa's defense is legit. It's going to be top 5 to 10 in the country. Absolutely. And that's why I think Iowa could go 11 wins. Because if you look at their schedule, they don't have to play Michigan. They don't have to play Ohio State. They play, not so great teams in the Big Ten East. They also play, they play Penn State. Now, Penn State is going to be one of their tougher opponents. However, Penn State is, I think Penn State is very possibly going to be a win for Iowa. And the reason I say this is because Cade McNamara knows how to beat Penn State. Eric All knows how to beat Penn State. How you beat Penn State is you slash them with tight end option. You don't need to go crazy with 60-yard bombs down the field. You can slash them with tight end option. You can get yourself to the end zone. Cade McNamara had to win that game against Penn State because Michigan was down in that 2021 game. Cade McNamara had to win the game by throwing to Eric All. So I think Iowa could win as many as 11 games, 10. I'd say 9 or 10 minimum. I think they're going to tear through Utah State, Iowa State, Western Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, Rutgers, Illinois, and Nebraska. I think they're going to beat them all. And then you've got Penn State as a question mark, Wisconsin as a question mark, Minnesota as a question mark, and I think they're going to win 2 of those 3. So that you got 11 wins right there. But I do think Michigan will beat them in the Big Ten championship, and here's why. As good as Phil Parker's defense is, and I'm telling you, Phil Parker is maybe the best. Maybe one of the best defensive coordinators I've ever seen in the game, up there with Venables. I mean, he's really up there. And I think he part of the reason he gets not as great of a rap is because Iowa's offense has sucked so bad that it's even kind of put a stigma on the whole team a little bit, right? But Phil Parker is an incredible defensive coordinator. But even as good as he is, you can't take away everything that Michigan does. You can take away one thing and one thing. You got to pick your poison. You can run a multiple. You can run a mix of zone and man. But the problem is JJ can beat you with his arm. He can beat you with his legs. The running backs can beat you 5 ways to Sunday. Don't forget, you can run Blake Corum as a running back, and you can run Donovan Edwards in the slot as a receiver. And good luck defending that. I don't care how good you are. Good luck defending that with the O-line that Michigan has and the returning talent on the O-line. Trevor Keegan's coming back. Zach Zinner's coming back. They're loaded on O-line. So good luck getting past their O-line to get anything. And so, yeah, I think as good as like Cade is decent, but I think the defense is going to get him a couple of times because remember what happened in the Georgia game? Cade McNamara had problems because Georgia just kept coming after him because they knew he couldn't throw very well. They knew he couldn't run the ball for sure, and he can throw short yardage passes and medium yardage passes, but he can't really throw many deep balls. He threw maybe 2 or 3 in his that I've seen, right, that were decent. He's more of a short yardage passer. So what Michigan can do that Iowa can't is Michigan can load up and stop the run and force Cade McNamara to deep ball. And when Cade McNamara is forced to deep ball,
Right.
he throws picks. And he has problems. As good as he is at protecting the football, he does tend to throw interceptions when he's pressured. And when all Michigan and Jesse Minter have to do is take away the run and take away Caleb Johnson's ability to run the ball. And so I think Michigan would win that game hypothetically by, maybe 15 points. I don't think it's going to be as much of a blowout as the 2021 game was.
Yeah, that's also hold there. Great here tonight with John Diadamo, and man, it's been a great show so far. I got one more question and one more topic for you, and then of course, if you guys have comments or questions, we can get to those in the chat, and then after John gets off of here, we're going to do an Iowa Hawkeyes preview. But I do want to ask about UCLA and USC. They're set to join the Big Ten in 2024. What would you say, like, what do they bring to the table? And what ultimately will be the impact on the Big Ten with these two teams coming in? And ultimately, what's the impact on college football as a whole as this move in conference realignment takes over?
Well, they bring a lot to the table. Not only substantial research money, but also when you look at the football side of it, if we want to talk, kind of keep it to football, USC is a talented football team. Lincoln Riley is one of the best coaches in the game. Took Oklahoma to how many different conference championships and playoff appearances. And so USC, with their brand, what they bring to the table, that's impressive. UCLA is kind of like the couple, like they had to bring somebody. Let's bring UCLA. They still have a brand. They're still going to have some draw, but let's be honest, USC is the real exciting one. And that those games against Ohio State and Michigan are going to be the highest rated, other than Ohio State versus Michigan. It's going to be USC versus Michigan and USC versus Ohio State. Going to bring in a ton of ratings and money to the Big Ten. So I think they bring that. They bring the brand, the ratings, as well as places to go in late November when it's cold. You can maybe play a game in sunny South Carolina, California. So there's nothing wrong with that. There should be some fun games at the Rose Bowl Stadium too. So the Rose Bowl Stadium's definitely on my bucket list. So once Michigan goes over there, definitely going to a game at the Rose Bowl, a classic, iconic football stadium. And so I think they bring excitement, they bring ratings, and I think it's a beginning of things to come. I don't think that's it. I think we're going to start seeing some more people start to join up soon, and that's what we've been talking about on the show a lot with Miami and Notre Dame joining the AAU, Association of American Universities. That's a big step, and it's what you kind of have to have if you want to join the Big Ten. So, yeah, it's really exciting times for the Big Ten.
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty much all I got. Again, I don't really see many questions in the chat. I see a lot of people watching, but we at least appreciate all the comments. Anything else that we should know regarding Big Ten football this year? I know Big Ten on CBS. That's going to be huge. You looking forward to Gary Danielson?
Well, Mark informed me, because I wasn't around back then, but Mark informed me that actually Gary Danielson did do some Big Ten games historically. So I kind of thought, well, he's going to go from like calling Alabama, Tennessee like 100 points a game to Rutgers versus Northwestern 13-9. And that might be a bit of a shock, but apparently he's called Big Ten in the past. So now my joke doesn't work as well. But yeah, no, it should be cool. I'm looking forward to it. Happy to stay on for the Iowa chat too, because I've been talking a lot of Iowa with on the Big Ten Live panel. We've had Erica Goldberg, who's on Hawkeye of the Storm a lot. I've been talking to Corey Bratta from Hawkeye of the Storm as well, and the Iowa show. So yeah, I'm happy to deep dive into Iowa and talk through that too.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure, man. Let me go ahead. We won't put the schedule up on the screen yet. Well, it automatically does it.
We have Casey Mallory here, and Casey Mallory is one of the biggest fans of Hawkeye of the Storm in Iowa, so we're glad Casey's here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Casey, for showing up in the chat tonight, man. We appreciate you. Love all you guys. And
good question. Good question here. Casey, the newest one. Here we go.
Let's go.
You want me to go first?
I don't know who's out there. I'm not an expert on Iowa, so I'm going to let you take hold.
Okay. So if the real MVP is listening, he's a Kentucky fan. He always hates when I say this, but Mark Stoops.
Wow.
The Stoops connection to Iowa. Mark Stoops, a unique connection to Iowa. Kentucky, let's be honest. You've got a ceiling at Kentucky. I think he's got that program kind of in a bit of a, in a situation where they're better. They're okay, but they're not amazing. They're okay, but it's still Kentucky, and there's a limit. Whereas if you go to an Iowa, you could potentially bring Iowa, especially with like a season like they're about to have in 2023, with a coach like Mark Stoops, that could be a 12-0 season and a Big Ten championship win. If you had a coach like Mark Stoops, who actually understands you have to modernize your offense, and you shouldn't hire your son to be the offensive coordinator if he can't call an offense. Instead, maybe find a bench warmer position at the Patriots, for him. You can still give your son a job, but call up Bill Belichick, your homie, and say, hey, bud, can you get my son an assistant to the regional manager position, like Dwight Schrute, assistant to the regional manager, and he can just be that, and it can be a BS couple $100,000 a year job, but I think the Iowa fans just deserve better than having Brian freaking Ferentz as the offensive coordinator. I mean, just some of the decisions. First of all, the offense is so outdated. And I'm not talking Michigan, where it's like they keep it classic, but it's like they have spread concepts and modern concepts mixed in. No. It's an outdated offense. You're running a lot of under center pro style, I formation. I love I formation actually, but you got to mix it up with spread. You got to mix it up with more RPOs. And when Ferentz does try to get creative, let's put our tight end in as quarterback. Let's see how that goes. Like, what the heck? It's just the decisions when it comes to handling Spencer Petras and Padilla were questionable at best. So Iowa's a tale of two sides of the ball, right? On the offense, they have been a JV JUCO team, and on the defense, they're beating first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
They're incredible, right? And you almost feel bad for Phil Parker because he calls great games every game, and then gets let down by just a wet noodle offense. And so this year, I think there's so many pieces and so much talent that even he is not going to be able to mess it up, because just let Cade McNamara run the offense and let him use the 2021 Michigan playbook. He has it. Let him use it. Let him and Eric All take over and run the 2021 Michigan playbook. And I guarantee you, Iowa wins 10 to 11 games if that takes place.
Absolutely. So let's dive into, and we'll clip this and upload it, and I'll count it as a Iowa preview because I'm trying to do every Power 5 team this offseason, and we made a lot of good progress. We've like to do a couple during conference week, and we got John Diadamo on here, and it's been good conversation so far tonight. You look at Iowa last year, we've been talking quite a bit about them and what they did. This is a team that went 8-5 overall. They went 5-4 in the Big Ten. They won their bowl game over Kentucky, which I think is a huge win. Not only that, you shut out an SEC team. It was 21-0, which is huge. I also want to point out, now Northwestern's kind of a bad team in the Big Ten, kind of, sort of, just a little bit. No, a lot. They scored 33 points in that game. We know that they can find ways to put the pieces together on offense, and want to pull up the schedule too. They open up with a actually pretty good program. I don't know how they're going to be this year, but Utah State, Alabama, my Crimson Tide opened the season with them last year, and it was a whooping. Be honest, I mean, I think it was like 55-10 or something like that, but automatically right out the gate, I think it probably should be a win. Then they get Iowa State, Western Michigan, at Penn State as you see those first 4 games. What do you think?
Yeah. So, I mean, they get their first 3 games at home, or their first 2 out of their 3 at home, and then they have Iowa at Iowa State. In my mind, all 3 of those seem like wins. Iowa State might be a challenge. They've been a challenge in the past, but they've been rehabbing in terms of offense as well. And I just don't think that Iowa State has the horses this year to contend with Iowa and all of the talent that they have. As far as Western Michigan and Utah State, those to me seem like, 40 to 3 games. I mean, even with the offense that Iowa has with Cade, I think they're going to score pretty comfortably in both of those. And it really, your first, I think, really super difficult game is at Penn State. And like I said, so Erica Goldberg, a friend of the Voice of College Football and friend of Hawkeye the Storm on Iowa, has joined us. I think you're exactly right. Iowa State did beat you recently. I think it was this past year, but at the end of the day, like, that doesn't happen that often. Iowa does have the rivalry pretty locked. And so, like I said, I think your first really tough game is at Penn State, at Beaver Stadium. It is a night game, so that's never super fun. But they're not a Kinnick night game. So a Kinnick night game, look out, because there's something called the Kinnick Voodoo, Kinnick Magic, and it's real. And Michigan fell to it back in 2016. And Michigan lost at Kinnick at night. That's a whole nother level. But Beaver Stadium at night's pretty even. So I think that Iowa could win that game for the following reasons. One, I'm not sold on Penn State, like I told you. I'm not sold on the quarterback. And Iowa has the defense to shut down the run. So Phil Parker can absolutely shut down Penn State's run and force Drew to make throws. And from what I've seen, yes, he has an arm, but I mean, and again, we've seen limited tape on Drew, but he is limited, I think. And again, I might be wrong, and maybe I'll revise my analysis when we actually get to this week. But at the end of the day, and Casey just mentioned that even Ohio State, the great Ohio State Buckeyes, also fell to the Kinnick Magic and got kind of thumped. At least Michigan kept it close. Ohio State got whooped. So yeah, it's tough. But anyway, my point is, so I think Phil Parker's defense can shut Penn State's run down and limit the pass. And then on the other side of the ball, I think that Cade McNamara, like I said in the beginning of the show, Cade McNamara and Eric All know how to beat Penn State. They've done it. They did it in 2021. They won the game with a throw to Eric All to seal it, to finish it off. And so they know how to win. And with Luke Lachey on the other side and Caleb Johnson on the run, and their wide receiver with the Ohio State transfer wide receiver, look out, because Penn State's going to have problems on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always like to list, and maybe I didn't break down every single game into these two categories, but I think the possible upset, I do think Penn State will be favored in that game. But like you said, I'm not going to rule out an upset. I'm going to say the possible upsets, be careful with Penn State. And then I'm going to say on the road at Wisconsin. Maybe there's a couple more in there. Would you agree that maybe I listed two, but who else out there would you look at and say Iowa probably won't be favored, but if they play their cards right, they could come away with a win?
Yeah. So as we go down the schedule, we know that Michigan State is in shambles right now. There's a mass exodus from Michigan State. Something is rotten in Denmark, as the saying goes. Something's going wrong in that program, and I think Iowa's going to thump Michigan State at Kinnick. I also think that they're going to thump Purdue, because Purdue's lost everybody, and they're going to have to completely rebuild their program. So I think that the next tough game is Wisconsin. So what's going to need to happen? Nobody argues that Wisconsin has a decent defense and they have a decent run game. But the question mark is, can Tanner Mordecai overcome his interception fever that he seemed to have in the spring game, get into a rhythm, and run the air raid the way that they're going to need to run the air raid to beat probably a top 5 ranked defense in Iowa. It's at Camp Randall, so they're going to harness the power of jump around. We know that jump around is something that Wisconsin likes to use, but it's going to be tough. That's why I think, Minnesota could be a challenge, but again, it's at Kinnick. And Minnesota, they've been okay. Again, they've been kind of mid most of the time. They had that one game where they beat Penn State 2019. They're better now than they were under Tracy Claeys, but they're still not great. Who else do we have here
on the possible upsets?
Who else is on the schedule? Yeah, we got Northwestern's terrible. Rutgers, joke. Illinois could be interesting. Nebraska, Nebraska fans, like to talk about the wins that they've had. And, obviously Iowa was running I think at that point, Alex Padilla last year. So this is a whole different ball game for Nebraska. So I think Erica, who said at 10:46, she said, we will be favored for every game except for Penn State and maybe Wisconsin. I think that that's very true. And I think that Iowa's going to split those. So they're going to win one and lose one, which means if I'm going to keep my logic going from the fact that I think they're going to beat Penn State, considering, as Erica said, they beat Penn State even with Petrus, terrible quarterback. I think that I think 11 games is absolutely possible. And maybe the loss is to Wisconsin, or maybe it's a surprise loss at Nebraska. I'm not ruling that out either. But But either way, I see one L somewhere. I just don't know quite where it is. But still, that puts Iowa at 11 wins, and at 11 wins, they're almost definitely going to be in the Big Ten championship game against either Michigan or Ohio State.
Yeah, there's you really can't find a whole lot of trap games. I put Utah State because it's the opener. I always don't overlook an opener because
Yeah.
teams like to shock college
Yeah.
football. Nebraska, you mentioned late in the season. We'll see how they do with who got hired over there? I can't think.
Matt Rule. Matt Rule got hired.
Matt Rule, that's it. Thank you. And Northwestern. I don't know, man. This is it. Obviously, you're pretty high on Iowa. You mentioned Cade McNamara comes in. I think he's a great quarterback. I think that there's obviously going to be some improvement. There's going to be some changes. I'm with you, though. I don't know if we agree on the losses, but you mentioned they could probably have a ceiling of 10-2. I'm with you right there.
I think they have a ceiling of 11-1, actually.
Okay. I don't know about 11. I'll stick to 10, but
yeah. Hey, man, you predict whatever you want. I'm just saying, like with the sketch, like they don't have to play Michigan, they don't have to play Ohio State. Immediately there, you're at a much better position. So yeah, 10 or 11 wins, I think, is absolutely possible. The thing with Utah State, man, they went 6-7 last year. They're not very good. I understand what you're saying about the opener, like be careful. And we saw that with Alabama and Texas, and we've seen that repeatedly around college football. But I don't know about this one. I think Iowa's got that pretty well in hand.
Yeah, and again, we probably don't agree with the losses. I know you said 11-1 for them. It's hard to predict an undefeated season too, so they got to take at least one loss. I got them 2 losses.
Yeah.
I'm going to say they do lose to Penn State. I do think they lose to Penn State. And then I have a feeling Luke Fickell, by this point in the season, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, again, it's all predictions in the offseason, and we don't know until they take the field.
Hey, we got our buddy D4 Sports is saying hi.
Let's go. D4.
And, hey.
It's been a while. Good and Texas fan.
Yeah. And Erica's been rocking the chat here. Obviously, Erica's a big Iowa fan, as is Casey. So this is a great show for them to show up on because obviously we're talking Iowa here. Wisconsin, I just don't. I mean, it's tough because, I agree. I think that the conventional wisdom loss is against Penn State, but Iowa beat Penn State, like Erica says, with Spencer freaking Petras, one of the worst quarterbacks I've seen. And one of the worst offensive coordinators in the history of football, not just college football, in the history of football. I'm going to go that far. He's that bad. And they still beat Penn State. So imagine what they're going to do with Cade McNamara, Eric All, Luke Lachey, Caleb Johnson, a better wide receiver core, transfers in the O-line. They're going to crush it. And their defense is already going to be top 5 or 10. I don't know. It's just Wisconsin. I thought they were going to be really good looking, but they look kind of mid to even bad at points in the spring game. I know it's a spring game. I know they're just installing the air raid. So as we know, and D4 knows very well because he's a coordinator, that when you're installing a new scheme, a new offensive philosophy, it takes time. So maybe that was just because they're working out the kinks. The fact that Mordecai threw 4 picks is an anomaly, and we shouldn't read too much into it. But he didn't look good. And that's what I know right now about Fickell's offense at Wisconsin. It didn't look good. Defensively, though, they're going to be good. We know that. And they're going to be good at running game with Allen. They're going to be very good with Braylon Allen. He's one of the best running backs. He's probably going to go to the NFL pretty quickly. And yeah, D4's mentioning that here. So he's an actual coordinator. Defensive coordinator. So yeah, new scheme needs live game action to tweak. Exactly. So by this point in the season, there will have been live game action, but I still don't know. But yeah, that does seem like you said that might be the loss. I can buy that. It's at Camp Randall. Jump around. Wisconsin jumps around to maybe a win, and then you've got an 11-1 if my theory of Penn State holds true and Iowa beats Penn State. Then if they lose to Wisconsin, that's an 11-1 season, and you're off to the Big Ten championship game against Michigan or Ohio State, and maybe Penn State. We'll humor it a little bit, but I just don't think so.
No, man. I see. That's the best part about the off season is everybody's got their own unique way of looking at it, and everyone's got their own unique takes.
Yeah.
I agree about like Michigan. I agree about Ohio State. We disagree on Penn State. We kind of sort of disagree on Iowa. I could still see Iowa winning the West, no problem. 11 wins.
Well, let me ask you, what do you see in Penn State? Like, what are some of the factors and like, what do you think Penn State is going to have to do to win the Big Ten championship, to just get to the Big Ten championship and then win it? What do you think the keys to that are going to be?
Well, I did like the hire of Manny Diaz as the defensive coordinator.
I did too.
They have recruited on that side of the ball pretty well recently in recent years, so the talent's there. I will admit that it's a young group. It's not a whole lot of experience, and they have lost guys to the draft, like in recent years, like PJ Mustipher or Joey Porter or what's that? Shaka Tony. They had some fun names, man. They have lost some guys. I have watched Penn State these past few seasons, and it just seems like they're that one play away. They're that one player. They're that one hire. They're that. I just think that they're that program that's just one hire or whatever. You fill in the blank. They're one away from a glory road in college football.
It's just tough. Like they are at where Michigan, I think, was in 2018-19, where they can beat almost any team on their schedule, but when they get to the big dogs, I just don't know how in one off season you can erase the allowing 417 rushing yards against them. I just don't see how all of those things are going to get corrected in one off season. And actually, D4, it's funny that he's here because we broke down that tape together on his channel when we did that episode and looked at it really in depth. And I mean, just allowing that amount of rushing yardage is just that's going to be tough, man. That's going to be tough to fix. But do I think they're going to beat most teams? Sure. I think they have the 4 and 5 star talent to beat most teams. I just think yet again they're going to struggle against the top 2. But we'll see. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about football is you can guess and you can think what you want, but the ball's shaped funny and things happen. So I could be off, and our buddy Michael Campbell, the big Notre Dame fan at Voice of College Football, who thinks Ohio State's going to go 9-3, and that Penn State might
be ridiculous.
D4 mentions the difference in Penn State and Michigan, and Michigan Ohio State is that the latter two are used to big games and have won them. Penn State needs the mentality, right? Their big game wins have been the Rose Bowl against a depleted Utah team, and the fluke 2016 Ohio State win, which got them the Big Ten championship. And you can argue the Michigan win in 2017 with Saquon Barkley. And by the way, James Franklin owes Saquon Barkley probably half of his check because let's be real. he's a big reason why they did so well. So I think he needs to give a big portion of his fat check that he gets every year to Moorhead and to Saquon Barkley for the successes that they had then. But yeah, they have not won very many big games. And by the way, they said that about Harbaugh before 2021. Everybody did.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just think we're just not there yet, and they're not there yet, and I just don't think they're going to beat Ohio State, and I don't think they're going to beat Michigan. We have our friends of the show, Jason Moose and Antoine, Michigan fans, joining the crew.
Nice.
Hey guys, go blue! Love it. Man, we got some good turnout tonight, man. Look at this.
Absolutely. Make sure you guys leave a thumbs up. And again, you can catch John over at the Voice of College Football pretty frequently, I'm sure.
Yeah. So you can follow me on Twitter at John D'Adamo. So that's JOHNDADAMO. You can on Monday nights, usually, although we've been mixing it up because Mark's taking some well-deserved vacation days. But no, Big Ten, I usually host the 8 p.m. Eastern block. And then on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, I host the Michigan Wolverines live show. So I do those every single week. And thank you, Antoine. Yeah, we had today we had a bit of a controversial final topic. So Mark Rogers has this thing, dumbest fan base of the day award, and and it is what he likes to have fun, and it's all good for business, But he actually named his own team dumbest fan base of the day. I think the first one was Ohio State. So he is, and he does look at all the teams and what they're saying, and I think his point is just like, yeah, it's sometimes people don't grasp some of the things. Casey Mallory, thanks to the Iowa fans, the Michigan fans, and everybody who came and supported me and who came to watch Ballard Sports Media, because this guy's doing a great job putting together content. And you have the obviously the Pac-12 discussion coming up with Tony as well, so that's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, so you guys can catch us all this week with Conference Talk, Conference Week. We have tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tony Altimore is going to be live with us for the Pac-12. And then I didn't fix the title, but I think we're going to get – I don't know if you're familiar with Joe – well, you are. Joey Foster is going to try to be on with us Friday for the Big 12. He's a West Virginia guy, for those that don't know.
Yeah, Joey Foster's the man. I mean, he helps put all these things together, and he's a connector, and he helps everybody out. So definitely check out everything with Ballard Sports Media and what Joey's doing. Yeah, let's see. Is Tim Prangley going to creep in again when I talk about Tatum? He might. I mean, I did put it in the Discord that I'm doing this. Did Mark go on the Ohio State show and punch them in the mouth? I don't know. I didn't watch the Buckeyes show that week. I don't think. I try to watch the Buckeyes show, but I got work then, so most of the time I miss it.
Jason Moose says Foster's Australian for beer.
There it is. Yeah. Look, I mean, I made it. So Antoine, to be fair, I'm the one who made that a topic because I wanted him to explain himself. Okay. And he did. So at the end, that's why I did it. I wanted him to explain why he did that, because otherwise it wouldn't have been mentioned. So, now he explained himself. Do I agree with it? I mean, I think that every fan base has some people who don't understand what people are saying, and that includes Michigan, but it also includes every single fan base on the face of the planet. So, yeah, I don't know. But, yeah, the crew is all here. I appreciate you all.
Absolutely. We appreciate everyone for showing up tonight. John, great discussion, man. Let's keep in touch because I think you could offer some really good insight going forward, man. I appreciate you doing this.
Absolutely. No, I was happy to do this, Christian. And like anytime you need somebody to talk Big Ten with you or Michigan. Obviously, a big Michigan Wolverine fan. And like I said, my prediction 12-0 this year. And headed to the hopefully a playoff win and a final finale against Georgia.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, John. We're going to end the show. And I love and appreciate everyone who showed up tonight. Thanks so much. Hit that thumbs up on your way out. God bless. And we'll see you next time. Ballard Sports Media.
Go Blue.
Erica, it's Alabama. Roll Tide. All right. See you guys.